What's up guys, my name is Ace, and not too long ago I uploaded a video talking about the top 7 best maps in COD World War II, in my opinion. And today it's time for part 2. I'm going to be sharing what I feel are the top 7 worst maps in this game. No point in messing around with a long intro, let's hop right into this list. Once again, this is going to be in no particular order. First up, we're going to start this one off strong, Carentan. Carentan was a map that was introduced back in COD 2, and then we saw it reintroduced as Chinatown in COD 4. And I feel like in those games, it played fairly well. I don't know if my tastes have changed or just the general playstyle of the community has changed since those days, but I absolutely hate Carentan in COD World War II. It is one of my least favorite maps. I feel it really just turns into people camping up in windows or sitting in rooms with shotguns. Oftentimes, if I'm playing Team Deathmatch, we go to the time limit before we reach 75 kills, which I think is just ridiculous because it's only 75 kills. And while I can often do very well on this map, I just find that it usually devolves into a hide-and-seek match, and I just can't stay in the lobby anymore if I see this map voted for. This brings us to the next one on my list, and this is Gustav Cannon. Now, I'll admit, I don't mind playing Gustav Cannon every once in a while. If I haven't played it in a couple gaming sessions, sure, I'm down for a game of Gustav Cannon. The problem is, if I'm playing this even more than once within a play session, I'm generally not too happy with it. With this map, I really feel it's mainly just a lack of variety. It's dominated by sniper rifles and LMGs, and generally speaking, it's just a fight for the top of the Gustav Cannon, then once you get up there, you pick people off as they come out of spawn. Pretty one-dimensional, pretty boring to play. Yes, you can try and mix it up and run around with an SMG, and sometimes you can find success with that. But once again, just like with Carentan, this will often suffer with the problem of reaching the time limit in Team Deathmatch, which just translates to this map being generally boring to play. I don't mind taking a break from the regular playstyle every now and then and just pulling out a sniper rifle, standing on top of Gustav and picking people off. But like I said, if I get that more than once at a play session, I'm typically out of that lobby. This brings us to the next one on the list, and this is Pointe-du-Hoc. Pointe-du-Hoc to me is just a bunch of chaos, and it's also very difficult to manage that chaos. I believe it was Blame Truth made a video about this towards the beginning of the game's life cycle. And he pointed out something really interesting. As you're going through this map, there are far too many different directions you have to worry about at any given time, and at least on console where your field of view is fixed, it's impossible to cover all of those options. This leads to a feeling of randomness in a lot of situations because you can't possibly be checking 5 different directions at once, and enemies can be shooting you from 5 different directions at once. Couple that with the fact that the combat shotgun in this game can be pretty annoying to die to. I don't want to say overpowered because it is also inconsistent, so it can be frustrating to use, but it is very frustrating to play against at times. And with this map, there's just no relief from that. Yes, if you really get that map down and you really understand how the spawns work, you can do your best to mitigate this. But at the end of the day, you're still going to run into a bunch of situations where you're shot from an angle that you couldn't possibly be watching, or you just end up in one of those 50-50 fights where you can't avoid being face-to-face in close quarters with somebody that may or may not have a shotgun. As a result, even though I wouldn't say Pointe-du-Hoc is my absolute least favorite map in this game, it's definitely in my top 7. Moving on to the next one on my list, this is actually one of the recent maps. This is Excavation. Now, I think one of the big things I dislike about Excavation in general is just the fact that it's got that circular shape. I feel like circular Call of Duty maps typically don't work out too well. Also, really noticed on this map, enemies blend in with the background more than any map in this game. And that's saying something because there's a bunch of other maps where enemies tend to blend in, but I would say Excavation is the worst offender for this. Again, this is the type of map where I wouldn't consider it to be the worst abomination of a map in this game. It's just a map I generally don't enjoy playing. Now, getting into the next one on this list, this is the Headquarters map. Now, with this one, of course, Sledgehammer has an out. This map wasn't initially designed to be playing multiplayer games on. It was designed to be the Headquarters. So, of course, I didn't really expect this to be a great multiplayer experience, but I just had to come out and say it. This map plays terribly, in my opinion, for basically any game mode. Free-for-all isn't quite as bad as any sort of the team-based modes, but even with free-for-all, the spawns are pretty ridiculous on Headquarters. And therefore, the only mode that I would say is actually decently playable on this map is going to be Prop Hunt. Now, we're getting pretty close to the end of the list. The next one we have here is one that I'm going to get some backlash for. I know. This is Shipment. Yes, Shipment is very popular. Yes, Shipment is excellent for racking up the most amount of kills and the highest score possible. It's great for completing challenges. But aside from that, I just don't think Shipment plays well, and it doesn't offer a good Call of Duty experience, in my opinion. I know, like I said, I'm gonna get backlash. People will disagree with me because this map is very popular. But for me at least, I hate playing Shipment. The easiest way to succeed on this map is to pick a corner, find a piece of cover, and set yourself up with an LMG. Let the enemies run into your sights. You can rack up V2 rockets and 100 plus gameplays, no problem. I don't find that to be an enjoyable experience by any means because there's not really a whole lot of thought going on there. You just kind of post up, pick people off that run into your sights. There's not much thought of map control, a little bit of spawn prediction, but it's extremely simple and basic spawn prediction that anybody can learn very, very easily. Running around this map will generally just get you picked off by those LMG campers, but when they don't have LMG campers, I'll admit you can make some pretty cool things happen running around with an SMG or a shotgun from time to time. And I would say one of the biggest problems with this map is the fact that Requisitions is still extremely powerful and will consistently, completely turn the tides on the match. On other maps, Requisitions is essentially a non-issue these days. I don't really see it used too often, but on Shipment Domination, without fail, every single game of Shipment Domination I play, Requisitions comes out, usually by several players, and from that point on, you basically can't go outside unless you happen to have earned flat guns that you have waiting for it. Even then, once your flat guns wear off, you're gonna get bombarded once again with more of those streaks. So many times in Shipment, I've really worked hard to play the objective, and it's a somewhat close game, but we've got the lead. We're at like 150 domination score, kind of on that winning stretch. And in come the constant artillery barrages, paratroopers, ball turret gunners, firebombing runs, and carpet bombers, non-stop for just lay down in a crate and I'll go check Twitter or something. Because if you take one step outside of that crate, you're instantly dead. There's no point in even playing. To me, Shipment is just absolute mindless chaos that's... For those that like Shipment, fair enough. I'm happy you guys have the map there. I'm happy you guys have your 24/7 playlist on it. But for me at least, I absolutely hate it, and I really wish it wasn't in regular rotation. So finally, we have one more map to cover on this list, and just like part 1, I saved the best, or I guess in this case the worst, for last. This is USS Texas. This map has a bunch of different problems in my opinion. First off, it's extremely long and narrow. And don't get me wrong, you can make a map that plays well that is really narrow. Look at Hijack, for instance. That map tends to play pretty well. USS Texas, on the other hand, not so much. This map doesn't offer any viable flank routes towards the enemy spawn points. It's very narrow, so it really forces you into narrow choke points. It has power positions within spawns, which encourages people to simply spawn in, jump up to the power position, and hang out there. It has power positions overlooking both of the spawns, so when enemies push up to there, it can be really difficult. And I feel like this often turns into an experience where one team pushes up to the power positions that overlook a spawn, and they basically just spawn trap the other team, while the other team doesn't even try to break out of their spawn, because they have a power position they can hop up to. So it sucks being on the receiving end where you end up in a spawn trap, but it also kind of sucks being on the giving end because there's only so far you can push up the map before. And second, you really don't want to be flipping spawns because that's really detrimental to your team. So if you're trying to play with an SMG playstyle and you get to that point where you take control of the middle map and get them pushed up into their spawn, your options are very limited and you basically just have to wait until they come to you in close quarters. I find this to be very boring on both ends of the spectrum, where it has some glaring design issues. So as a result, I've got to say this has to be my least design for regular multiplayer play. Shipment has the excuse that it's designed to be that type of experience, and it handles that experience well if that's what you're looking for. USS Texas, on the other hand, this was meant to be a serious map. It was one of the base maps in the game, and I personally feel it's just a terrible map. So with that, that's going to wrap it up for the list of my top 7 least favorite maps in COD World War II. Of course, as always, I'd love to know in the comment section below, what do you feel are the worst maps in this game? Are there any you disagree with me on, or are there any that I didn't put on this list that you think should be on this list? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.